art of wrestling with professional wrestler Colt Cabana.
Hey, all right, how you guys doing? Come on in, sit down, relax. You're about to listen to The Art of Wrestling, a professional wrestling podcast. It's a life podcast. It's a personal journal. It's an entryway into the minds and souls, the hearts and lives of the people involved in the world of professional wrestling. I'm your host. My name is Colt Cabana. I am a sore man. That's what I am. I mean, I'm also a personality. I'm also a shit auditioner. Most importantly, though, I am a professional wrestler. I am sitting here live in my studio apartment in Chicago, Illinois. Before I go any further, this is a fan-supported and listener-supported podcast supported by people just like you. Give it to you free of charge every single Thursday on ColtCabana.com, iTunes, SoundCloud, wherever you get your podcasts from. A couple great ways that you can support, rate, review, and subscribe on iTunes. Tell a friend. Let them know that there's a really good show going on here for over 6 years now. Best way that you can support, though, ColtMerch.com, DigitalColt.com, t-shirts, buttons, pictures, posters, DVDs, digital downloads, premium podcasts. It's a great way to support an independent podcaster and independent wrestling. ColtMerch.com, DigitalColt.com. I am a sore man, and that's because I wrestled in a Ringmasters Challenge match last Saturday in Duluth, Georgia, right outside of Atlanta, Georgia. Last time I was in Georgia wasn't for a while. There was a WrestleMania there, and that was the first time Marty and I really experimented with doing a live show. We did a live show at some sweet theater ran by the dude from PCW. That wasn't the last time I wrestled. I wrestled for PCW, but I also wrestled for a guy named Johnny Gs Funhouse, which, I love and I support and I champion like the weird things and the weird happenings in independent wrestling. Listen, you sign with a big guy or a big company and you're doing arenas and sweet places. You stay on the shitholes of the indies and you're doing Johnny Gs Funhouse, which is essentially like a real southern Chuck E. Cheese's ran by one of the most world famous optometrists who just loved wrestling. I don't think he's doing it anymore, but he was just like a great dude. He would fly all over the world to do seminars and teach people about like fixing people's eyes. I know for a fact Ron Simmons traded him wrestling for fixing his eyes. And a couple other wrestlers have done that over the years. I think Jim Duggan did it too. And this guy gave back to the community by opening like a Chuck E. Cheese for the kids to play. And also he had a love for wrestling. So he gave back to the community by putting a wrestling show in there every single week. I remember it well. That's actually where I did the Jimmy Rave episode, which was like 5.5 years ago. That's on the archives on howl.fm. If you want to listen to that, use the offer code COLT, get a free month. Bull Buchanan, that's where I met Bull Buchanan. And he was not only back there then, he was back in the locker room in Atlanta. It was nice to say hi to him and his son who listens. So hello, what would be the kid of a bull? Calf? Calf Buchanan? That's wrong. Sounds kind of fun though. Ringmasters Challenge, 2 out of 3 falls. First match was pins only. Second match was submission. And if it went to a third match, which you fucking know it did, it became a half-hour Iron Man match. So essentially we wrestled over 45 minutes. And if you've learned one thing, I haven't been in Ring of Honor for years, right? And that's kind of the place where you have these hard-hitting, crazy style matches. And I've kind of adapted a style to kind of be easy on my body, kind of be fun. And I guess I didn't really realize it. I was talking to my buddy and comedian, Ricky Gonzalez. Hi, Ricky. And he's like, yeah, you haven't wrestled one of those matches in like years. So like, yeah, of course you're going to be sore. And it's Thursday now, and I can still barely move. I texted Jay. I said, Jay, how you feeling? He goes, yeah, great. I go, you sore? He goes, no, not at all. So that's a real wake-up call to how me and my body works. We're doing a pay-per-view in Lowell, Massachusetts. You should order it this week. It's on Friday, and then we're doing TV tapings. Those are on Saturday. Just order it to see if I can still move on a pay-per-view. But this week's show is not about promoting this pay-per-view that's coming up for Ring of Honors. It's actually to help promote a couple things, the Kansas City Training Center, and also the show that I'm doing on Saturday, October 8th, Metro Wrestling in Kansas City, Kansas, because Trevor Murdoch is on the show. He's part of a training center that's happening in Kansas City. He just had a child, so he's taking a little bit of a break, but he'll be back. But I kept this one in my back pocket a little bit because I know I'm going to go wrestle for Metro Wrestling. And part of the deal is I'm wrestling against my trainer, Ace Steel, in like a sweet Survivor Series style match. Unity. See, it all works out. We're all helping each other out. Speaking of training centers, also, my friend Sean Davari, the first guest ever on this show, You can hear that first awful episode on Howl.fm. Use that code COLT. Get yourself a free month. Sean Davari and Ken Anderson are opening up a training center in Minnesota, theacademyprowrestling.com. Usually it's $3,000 to train. Sign up now. It's $1,000. I couldn't recommend those guys more, and we'll probably do some more plug-in with those guys in the future because they're both my friends, and I think that would be an amazing opportunity if you wanted to be a pro wrestler. But Trevor's on the show. Let's talk a little bit about Trevor. I've known Trevor, I would say starting in 2002 or 2001. He used to come down to IWA Mid-South. And even when you say IWA Mid-South, it kind of sounds Southern, right? I came down to IWA Mid-South, and that's where we first met. Maybe 2003, because Ace Steele, my trainer, had then moved to Kansas City, or moved to Eldon, Missouri, to kind of be around Harley Race. And then all those guys started coming down to IWA Mid-South. And so we made a nice connection. Trevor moved a lot faster in his career than I did. So he got to the big show, got to the WWE, tagged with Lance K. They had a really, I'd say, notable, fun, successful run as tag team champions. And he was a wrestling personality. And he was also a guy that broke a mold, I would say. You look at a guy like Kevin Owens. I was going to say Kevin Steen. Kevin Owens now, and he's the champion. And, years ago, they would say he's not allowed to be on the television show. He doesn't look like Batista or Roman Reigns. But you can also look like a guy at Trevor. And I think we talk a little bit about it, but I was like, no way they're hiring Trevor. And then, yeah, of course they do. And he looks perfect. He looks exactly the role. And I think it makes him a little bit of a trendsetter. Now, here's the thing. Trevor and I have always been great friends. We've always been friends. There's some people that didn't like him. And I know this isn't something I brought up to him necessarily, but he rubbed people the wrong way. I think he got in the mindset, and he'll talk about being rough and tough with some of the guys, his wrestling style. And when you're on the road a lot, some people don't like to be handled that way, but that's the way he liked to handle wrestling. Here's one of those things that in the back of my head, I was always like, no way. Listen, Trevor's a great dude because he was on the roster. He was doing good things. I was doing enhancement work 2006, just going to Monday nights and Tuesday nights. That's the way I worked. I wasn't making a lot of money, but I was a full-time wrestler. That's quote-unquote a starving artist. And I'd go there, and at that time, I wrestled so many matches. Eugene, Snitsky, Jim Duggan, Vito, Matt Hardy. I mean, there's like a list. Brent Albright. I wrestled all of these guys. And I also wrestled Trevor on Sunday Night Heat. And of course, there's, the guys that could be pieces of shit to the underneath talent. And especially at that time, I don't know if that happens so much now, but especially at that time, there was just this regime of kind of like the old school way. And Trevor definitely goes into the old school way. He definitely has that mindset. But Trevor didn't pretend like he didn't know who I was. He knew exactly who I was. He requested to wrestle me. He requested for me to be on the show. Obviously, I think to make himself look good, but also, helped me out. And then I remember he let me stay in his hotel room. So you got to remember, he has a hotel room. He said, Colt, I got a free bed. Please stay in my room. I was like, maybe I'll just drive to the next town. He's like, nope, please stay in my room. Let me stay in his room. And that's that's a status thing. The thing about status is you wouldn't want this guy, this jobber, if you will, to be seen with you or even, around you. And he had no problem. And I always keep that in mind, for myself when I'm in a position where someone with a lower status is around me and whatever it might be, is just to keep that in mind and remember that we're all people. And then we all met at a barn in southern Indiana once upon a time. All right, I do have a song of the week this week, and it is brought to you by WWE 2K17. That's right, WWE 2K17. The video game is back, and their cover boy is Brock Lesnar. This year's game features amazing graphics and gameplay, as well as a gigantic roster featuring the biggest and brightest stars of the WWE past and present, including probably hundreds of guys who have appeared on this very podcast. This year includes their powerful creation suite with favorites like Create a Superstar, Create a Championship, as well as new creation options like Create a Video and Create a Victory. Let the new promo engine bring drama and personality to life in the My Career and WWE Universe modes. Your words will shape your character as they rise to the ranks from NXT to WWE to the WWE Hall of Fame, just like Coco Beware. The soundtrack this year is actually curated by Puff Daddy. That's kind of awesome. Pre-order your copy today and receive playable characters of Bill Goldberg. You know Bill Goldberg from that weird episode of this podcast, but this is from when he was kicking ass in WCW and when he was just kicking in WWE. They'll also throw in 2 classic WCW arenas. For more information, go to WWE.2K.com. WWE 2K17 hits the shelves October 11th. Pre-order it now. All right, the song of the week is by Jason Gold. That's Jaysen. He's on Twitter at Jason Gold, Facebook Jason Gold Music. He's an independent country music artist. Seems fitting for the episode. Let's hear him sing about the Ultimate Warrior, and then we'll be back with Trevor Murdoch.
I'll tell you what I'm really surprised by is that you don't have a dip in right now.
I do. I'm just fat. Yeah, I do.
Your lips are fat.
Yeah, I'm just.
Or you're such a pro.
I'm a fat one. It was funny. Like guys, when I'd come to the ring, they're like, "How do you wrestle with a chew-in?" And I don't. I'm just fat, man.
Wait, you don't wrestle with a chew-in?
I don't wrestle.
But they just thought your lips were so big.
Yeah, they're kind folks up there.
Did you ever wrestle with a chew-in?
I did, actually. When I was with TNA, I used to come out as stand-up, and I'd have leaf chew-in, and I'd have it running down my chin. But as soon as I got to the steps, I'd have to fling it out and start spitting and kayfabe everybody because they wanted me to look like I still had it in, but I couldn't wrestle. I couldn't breathe.
So you didn't essentially wrestle in it.
Yeah,
I know.
no.
I've never dipped before.
No,
I wouldn't even know.
No, there's no way. You're huffing and puffing, and you're just doing that but swallow that crap.
Did you ever hear stories of guys that did, maybe?
Oh, yeah. There was, Skinner, I heard he used to have it in it all the time.
That wasn't black licorice?
No, I don't think so.
No, not even.
I don't think, that's not what I was told.
When'd you start dipping?
Oh, I was, in high school, man.
Yeah.
I come from a small town, Fredericktown, Missouri. And nothing but country folks. So smoking wasn't the thing. Chewing was, and you could do it in school. And
they did it in school.
Oh man!
I wonder if you were even allowed. I'm just trying to think back to my school. I don't even know.
They had a smoking pit. When I was in school, like my freshman year, they still had a smoking pit. And then my sophomore year, they nixed the smoking pit.
But even up to, which was probably like
96.
96. Are you younger than me?
I graduated in 96. So
okay.
I'm sorry. So we're talking.
Right. So it would have been 93 or whatever.
92?
Yeah. Yeah, because you know, it's funny because I graduated in 98, but you'd go back. I don't know about you, but like in our library, they'd have like the old yearbooks, and then you'd look at like the yearbooks from like I don't know, even like the early 80s or 70s, and like people are drinking beers in school, like in the yearbook.
Yeah, they still had open lunches when I was in school.
Yeah.
You could go, I don't know if that's a thing anymore, but you could leave the school, go to whatever fast food restaurant, and come back, eat your lunch, and be fine. But of course, everybody used that opportunity to fight, so they ended up nixing that as well.
What was it, Frederick, Missouri?
Fredericktown,
Missouri.
Yeah,
so
Cape Girardeau, Missouri.
Okay, real little town.
Yeah.
And any. Okay, so your like growing up hood was what like.
I live 30 miles outside of town, and I mean, people joke, I used to go to school, it was dark, I used to come home, and that was legit for me because I rode a bus, and I was the end of the bus schedule, so I would literally be standing up, be the first guy picked up, and it would be dark by the time I got to school. It's an hour-and-a-half bus ride after you pick everybody
Jesus,
up. Yeah,
right?
It was insane. But then I was the last guy, so I was watching the sun go down as I'm going home.
What did your parents do?
My dad was a truck driver, and my mom was a stay-at-home parent. Now I've got 8 sisters and 2 brothers, and I'm the baby.
Oh, Lord.
Yeah, but I'm the biggest, though, so I definitely gained something there.
So basically, the truck income was for 10 kids?
Yeah, 10 kids, man.
How are you living?
Well, a lot of hand-me-downs. You don't waste anything. There's no scraps on the plate for sure. But we didn't know that we were living check to check. It was just life for us. We were happy. I didn't really realize I was poor until I started making money, and then I was like, holy crap! I don't know how my mom and dad did it, but they did, and we were all
How many kids in a room? What was the house like?
Well, my sister, I got lucky because there's only 2 other boys and me. So we got to share a room, and then my 7 sisters had to split up 2 other rooms. So 3 rooms between the 10 of them.
And it was, again, like they don't know, or they don't know any different? Or
No, because we all grew up and you shared a room. There was, you live with these, this is family. Yeah, you have no clue, really. You don't know. It's just family.
Yeah, fuck. I'm just thinking of myself, like, I don't know, I had a room, my brother had a room, nice big room, closet, toys.
And my kids, I have 2 kids, I've got 1 on the way, and they each have their own room, so they have no idea what it's like to share.
Could you imagine having 10, like, what if you had 10 kids right now?
My God, we wouldn't probably be having this conversation.
Do you see, like, your mom, like, how, like, you can't believe Were they all your kids or stepkids or?
Half and half. Some from my dad from another marriage, and then of course.
Do you look back and be like, how did they do it?
Well, of course, but then you have to look at the timeline on money. You start breaking down the economy and how money lasted longer back then. You can't make the same income now that they did then and feed 2 children and a wife. The economy just won't. It's just not there. Bro.
Did you see your dad as a truck driver?
Did I? No. He drove. He worked in St. Louis, so he was like me. He was driving to work in the dark, coming home in the dark. I seen him for maybe an hour or two. He'd come home, have dinner.
So he wasn't on like long trips.
No.
Right.
He came home every night. The issue was that he was literally gone for 14, 15 hours a day. So when he came home, he was tired. He wanted to eat, watch a little bit of TV, and most likely he fell asleep on the couch. And
what was it like? Did that like it sounds just like a dragging life. I don't know.
He was doing what he had to do, and actually, I gained a lot of respect for him because he sacrificed a lot to make sure that we had clothes and food, and you can't do nothing but respect a man for that.
Yeah.
And certainly, he's the leader and the example for me and my children and how I want to raise my crew.
No one ever came out of Fredericktown, Missouri. I was gonna say as a wrestler.
No.
Did anybody ever of any acknowledgement or accomplishment?
Not to the standard that I was blessed with. And it's crazy you bring that up. When I was tag team champion, my dad went to the newspaper, local, Fredericktown newspaper, and explained to them what was going on and that I was on TV. And the newspaper wouldn't even write a story about me because pro wrestling to them was, in their words, fake and an act. It wasn't real to them. And my father threw a couple.
Now, if he was an alligator wrestler,
right? Well, he threw a couple, cuss words, and he said, "If you know anybody else who's on national TV right now that's from this town, you're more than welcome to write about them." And he said, "If you're not going to write a story, you can go ahead and cancel my subscription." And he walked out.
One at a time. He
wasn't scared.
He made a statement one at a time.
Course.
But that was probably like half their. Such a small town, like that one subscription was like half their yearly revenue.
Say all that. I mean, we weren't podunk, but we were definitely a small town. Yes.
So who would be a second? Anyone?
Not to my knowledge. I mean, I think there might be a couple guys who's been to some pretty high-profile rodeos, and I know that sounds. I'm like I'm burying my town, but
no, it's a tiny town.
It's really. I'm the only. I'm the lucky. I'm the only guy that's come out of there that's done something on a national level to get national ratings.
Yeah. So did you? And then how does that work? Dad likes wrestling. You like wrestling. You found wrestling. Your brother liked wrestling.
My brother was the big fan. Like on Sunday mornings, my older brother Mark would wake me up, and we would go watch Old World Class. That's what I grew up on. Was the Von Erichs, Iceman King Parsons, Gentleman Chris Adams. I can remember vividly on Sunday mornings waking up in my underwear, eating a bowl of cereal, and couldn't wait. I just took it all in. And then, of course, back then, that's when they knew how to produce a wrestling show. There was always that TV time limit match or that, "Oh, folks, we'll get back to you next week." And I'm sitting there on my seat going, "What are you talking about?" And of course, that made me want to sit right there that next Sunday to find out what was going on.
I'm 2 years younger than you, I think, and I've had the vivid memory of like in the baseball field with that car. Remember when they were giving away a car? I don't know. It was on ESPN, but like, is that how you remember it? Was it on ESPN, or did you guys get it on like a local or channel?
I got it on we got it on local. You're talking about Are you talking about ESPN Classics?
No, because I would have been like 13 or 12. So it would have been 92, 93. I think it was still like 91 maybe. But I know it was a couple years behind. So like I know they syndicated it to ESPN. My history might not be rich.
Well, I think when we were watching World Class, it was on the old KPLR.
Well, mine was after school at like 3 o'clock. Yeah. So if yours was Sunday morning, right?
Like 9:30, 10 o'clock. And me and my brother, I mean, that's where we were for the first hour of our
Did you
days.
go to rest? Did you go? So did they ever come to Cape Girardeau?
One show came. My dad, after my parents split up, and it was just him and I for a while. There was a show came into town at the M&M flea market. I'll never forget. the ceiling was so low, the guys couldn't go to the top rope. They couldn't even like go off to like step off the top rope. They could stand in the ring and touch the ceiling. But I remember my dad saying, "You just cut loose. If you feel it, go with it." And I remember hating the heels and being that little kid that was up screaming, yelling, "You suck! I hate you!" And then of course when the baby faces music comes on, I was the kid jumping up and down. And I remember vividly just getting into every moment that they were creating. And as I got older, I wanted to do that. I wanted to create moments, that emotional connection with people. I couldn't find that in anything but pro wrestling.
I like the idea of you just cut loose. So like you were like maybe like a nicely disciplined kid, and he could like tell that you wanted to like.
Well, there's points where you take your kid to things and you're like, listen, you need to be respectful, mind your manners, behave yourself, don't say anything that you shouldn't. Mm-hmm. And my dad was intelligent enough to know, hey, listen, have a good time. Just do what you want. Son.
Did you go with a friend, or was it just him?
It was me and my dad.
Okay.
It was me, and we were front row. And it was this crappy little it's still there today, M&M Flea Market. But that was my first wrestling match, and that really stuck with me.
Was that the world class guys, or was it just locals?
It was just local guys.
Oh, okay.
Just local. My first, I didn't go to my first live national event till I was 22 years old. I didn't get a chance. I had some family issues happen. Wrestling didn't take a back burner. I had to focus on. My parents split up. I ended up going into a foster home for a while. My father passed away when I was 11, so there was a lot of personal things going on in my life. But the one thing, anytime I moved to a different house, or I was in a group home, or I was staying somewhere else, wrestling was always on the TV. No matter where I went, it was like wrestling was the only thing that stayed with me.
Did that drive you? I don't know much about before I met you in wrestling, which is years ago. Did that drive to any kind of delinquency or anything? Is that right? Because I could see that going either way, being in a foster home.
It didn't. I had a lot of anger. Yeah, and wrestling was a great outlet for that. I had a bad temper. I was at a point as a young kid, I thought the world owed me something. Oh, my parents, my dad died, and I'm in a foster home, blah, blah, blah. Once you get to a certain point, you have to ask yourself, do I take responsibility for my own actions as a man? And I realized that I didn't want to be a criminal. I didn't want to cause trouble. I like people liking me. I like having friends. So it was just a simple personal decision on what kind of life I wanted to lead. And
it's so nice though that you really believe wrestling kind of
it was the only steady. Yeah. Only when I needed to feel comfortable, when I needed to feel, as crazy as it sounds, when I needed to feel love. I knew I could go back and I could find it on the station. There was some station that was carrying wrestling, and I felt at peace. Even though I was living in a completely different house with strangers that were trying to be nice to me, wrestling was the only thing that was comfortable in my life, that I could almost disappear and be in my own little house. Does that make sense?
Yeah, of course. So it almost seems calming too, I get I get an aura of calmingness through you.
I looked forward to it. That was when you're a young kid and your future and there's a lot of uncertainty in your future. That was the only thing that remained constant was wrestling. And you love something, but you never. Who knows how to get into pro wrestling?
Right.
It's there's not like today where there's 100 schools out there. There's nobody running advertisements. It was just. I love it. I love watching it. I never thought I could be a part of it.
Yeah, and so you were it's kind of fun because I was young, and I think I remember you guys from the WOW magazine. You guys used to get good write ups in that WOW magazine, and it was WLW with Harley when it started, and if I was to look back, probably Derek, you, Matt Murphy, were his higher profile guys. So if you they'd have a profile the rankings of WWE and this guy, and then also WLW is snuck in there.
We were really blessed when we got to working with Harley. Those guys you talk about, Harley had his big rule was, I will push the guys that are in the gym training, and those group of guys were the same group of guys that were at his school every single day, running match after match after match. Well, let's try this. What about this? Harley, what do you think about this? All right, this is the story we want to tell in this match. And he was very adamant, if you guys put in the work, I'll push you. And he did. We got very blessed, and you were around for some of that. Harley would bring in names, and nowadays you see a lot of names that come in and they want to sign autographs. Nothing against him. I get like that sometimes too.
Yeah.
But to actually see that name in the ring working with the guys and working in front of a crowd that wouldn't normally get to see that individual is pretty important, pretty spectacular. And that's how I got good, was working with some of those names and getting better and picking their brains and just asking every question I thought might be stupid, but I wanted to know. I wanted an answer.
How'd you find? So I guess take me through the foster homes, and then how do you find the wrestling school? Were you part of that Harley's first class?
Yes, I was. Me and Matt Murphy were the first two students.
That's what I thought.
I had when I graduated high school, I planned on going into the Marine Corps. Because of some of my past medical history, they weren't going to allow me into the Marine Corps, and I had planned my whole future.
Wow, which was what? Do you mind me asking?
Marine. I want to be a Marine.
No, they're medical.
Oh, believe it or not, when I went into the foster homes, one of the foster parents thought that I was a little bit crazy, a little bit off. They put me in I wouldn't call it a psych ward, but a place for me to get mentally checked for 3 days. That's on my record. And when I went to go into the MEPS, I did all my physical. Everything was fine. But they seen that on my record, and they were afraid that I would go to boot camp and
AWOL.
or hurt somebody. You know. Now, if they would have seen where I'm at now, they would have been, well, he's a perfect soldier.
Yeah, right?
They missed out. So I went to Job Corps, and I became a certified welder. I was planning on building my career as a welder. I went to Georgia. I started building railroad cars. And I, of course, just like any story, my high school sweetheart, I reconnected with her, and I was like, I'm quitting my job. I'm coming back to Fredericktown. We're going to have a life together, blah, blah, blah. So I quit my job. I go back to Fredericktown 2 weeks later. Her and I aren't even talking. I got no job, no place to live. And my brother was working for a small independent company in St. Louis.
Still loved wrestling. The guy,
yeah.
So he was ready to jump in it before you, or
he was, and he was older. My brother, he's 11 years older than me. And he met a guy at his factory job. I'm an independent wrestler, and my brother, of course, I would love to do it. And so my brother got trained, and I've always been blessed with size, so I would come to the shows and do security. But before the show, I was their tackling dummy, and then of course after the show, well, let's try this move. After a while,
do you remember? So that shitty independent?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Was there a guy who ever made it, or
there was actually? Yeah. His name is Glen Jacob.
Yeah.
Believe it or not.
See, you weren't going to tell me that. I had to get that out of you.
Yes. No. Glen Jacobs, before he met Dean Malenko, went to the school. Started off in St. Louis at CSWA, where I started off. But when I started training there with my brother, Kane was already Kane, but this promoter was still selling Glen Jacob photos.
He was. Hey, Glenn, can you mind signing 8,000 of these before you?
Or sign 2, and I'll just copy 10,000 of them. So, and I didn't know. I was just thankful that a promoter was giving me a job. And what happened was a wrestler didn't show up, just like every other spectacular moment in this business. Mm-hmm. They needed a wrestler. The promoter looks around, points at me, and says, "You've been training. You're wrestling tonight." And I had my first match against my brother under the hood.
What were you wearing?
I was the deer hunter.
Nice.
I had a white hood, but over the white hood, I had the camouflage hunting gimmick where it was netting. Mm-hmm. And then I came out in the red coveralls, red, like full body red coveralls, and then blue overalls over that. And I'd come out, ding, 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 ding. But I didn't care. Nobody knew who I was.
Right.
I'm going to go out and just have a good time. And after that, I never got booked as a security. I was just deer hunter 1 or 2.
Nice. I started as the goon squad.
Dude, I'm telling you, is it under a hood?
Yeah, it was interchangeable. There's different goons.
That's a perfect gimmick to start. You do whatever you want. course you're going to mess up. Of course you're going to be crappy, but you're not walking out of the building and someone's burying you, you know, and hurting your feelings.
Or now would be on the internet going, this guy never.
The internet. That's a whole nother audio.
Well,
man.
So that's perfect. The deer hunter, interchangeable.
And I think every guy should actually do that. A lot of guys today, they want to go out and be themselves and be something that they're not. They can't even wrestle.
Right.
So I recommend that to anybody. Go under the hood your first 6 months at least.
For sure.
But after that, after about 6 months,
So you were untrained wrestling.
I was untrained. Yeah. I trained on the job. Like a lot of independent wrestlers are today. And I did that for about 3 years. I was doing some independence. I would drive down to Arkansas for Bill Ash and work shows for him. And I remember one show, I spent all of my money in gas to drive down there. Went with my brother, actually. We did 3 matches because they were doing TV. And I got paid $7 and I think 36 cents. And Altogether, because that was our percentage. And I looked at Bill and I said,
he gave you like a quarter, $7, a dime, and a penny?
Ain't no joke.
In an envelope? Or
my brother, no. My brother went in first, and he came out hot, and he goes, "We have to split this." And I was like, "What's that?" And it was $14 and some change.
72 cents.
And when I went in to talk to Bill, I said, "Bill, we can't even get home on this." I said, I'm not looking to eat. I'm not looking to drink. I just want to get home." And he's like, "This is all I got." And we literally made it home in the pennies that I had built up in my change cup in my truck. Right. And I said, I'll never. I almost quit wrestling over that. So this is how it's going to be. But Bill ended up meeting Harley. He had a connection with Harley.
Bill Ash did.
Bill Ash did, yes.
Okay.
And they started World Legion wrestling together in Springfield. And Bill kind of was being nice and go, "Hey, I know I kind of shafted you. I can get you booked on this show." And that was the first time I met Harley. And I'll tell you that, even that scenario, Harley was Gordon Soley and Harley Racer sitting in a Motel 6 in their lobby, and there's a fifth of vodka sitting between them, and they're putting the card together for the next day. There's 12, 13 young men, just like myself, standing up against the wall. Nobody's saying a word. Nobody wants to be disrespectful. And Harley realizes, I need somebody for Valentine. And he looks up and down the row of guys, and he looks at me, and he goes, "You got a license?" And I said, "Yes, sir." He goes, "Tomorrow you're working Greg the Hammer Valentine." And that was my first big name, and I was nervous and scared. And of course, the internet wasn't as big, but it was starting to get big. So I went back and I found some old matches of Valentine, and Valentine wanted to work with me. We put the match together. He gave me some, he told me he was going to give me some offense. We get up to the Gorilla. We're talking about the match, and Harley's right there, and he's hearing everything. And Harley, he had the big microphone. Like nowadays, we got headphones where they're a little piece. Harley still had the big, like, helicopter.
70s TV. Yeah.
And he pulls off one side, "Valentine, I don't want him to get shit." And Valentine looks at me and goes, "Okay, kid, we're going to have to scrap all that." I said, "Yes, sir, I'll just follow your lead." And he beat the snot out of me. I'm talking, put me on my knees, lean my chin back, driving forearms on my chest, just knocking the crap out of me. And I loved every single minute of it. I loved every bit of it. And
now, is it because I have a little bit in me, like, the romance of, like, that's how it's supposed to be.
Yes.
And you like even know at that time, like, in 15 years, I know, like, this is my story to tell. Almost.
Yeah, well, and honest believability, I think, is lost in this business. So I feel as if we need, I'm not afraid for somebody to lay it in there on me. Mm-hmm. It just makes, in my opinion, it makes the people that come in that are disbelievers question. If I can get them to at least question what they're watching, then I think I've gained ground for the business, at least for them to buy another ticket.
Right.
And that's what kind of the mantra I've kind of held my whole career is believability. I don't do a lot of flashy things, but I feel as if when I get in the ring, people know that I'm hurting somebody. Mm-hmm. And they're going to walk out of the building that night going, I know that wrestling, and that's some fake stuff, but that Trevor Murdoch, he's laying the wood to that fella. I know he will. You know what I mean? That believability, I think, is lost in the business. So I feel as if when I'm in there working, it's my job to bring part of that back to the show, at the very least.
When did you stop welding?
When did I stop? I've
never really stopped welding.
Yeah, really.
I'm still doing it in my basement.
It's you get to a point. For me, when Harley opened up the school, there was no other career. Like Harley's wife, she's BJ's passed away a while back. Her running joke was with me when we'd have new students coming into school. You guys need a job. Trevor may have had 50 jobs, but he's always had a job. And that was because when I would go work for somebody and they'd say, Trevor, and I would explain that I need Fridays. Sometimes I need Fridays and Saturdays off. Well, once I'd start working, they'd be like, Trevor, we need you this Friday. You can't take it. Well, I didn't move here. I'm not putting in all these hours of training to work in a cabinet factory. So I would quit that job, collect that paycheck, work the shows that weekend, and Monday morning I would be out looking for another job.
Right.
Most likely I would have something by Wednesday, and I would give them the same spiel. I'm here to be a wrestler. I might need Fridays and Saturdays off. They'd give me no problem. That's no worries. We'll work around you.
So you moved to Eldon proper.
Yes, I need to backtrack a little bit. The school originally started in Springfield, Missouri, in a boxing ring, and I left. I got a job at J.S. Alberici in St. Louis, making $15 an hour, union, living with my mother at the time.
Is that welding, you mean?
Yes.
Yeah,
welding,
okay.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Yes, welding. And she was living in a 3-story house, and it was just her and I. So I had this beautiful big house to myself, making great money, and I traded that all in to move to Springfield to live in a 2-bedroom house with 6 other people making $4.75 an hour doing landscaping, so I could train in a boxing ring, sweat my ass off in 105-degree weather. I mean, you would be putting on your boots and just be drenched in sweat. And we did that for the first 3 months until Harley got us a ring and moved everything from Springfield to Eldon. Once I moved to Springfield, I got a job. I ended up selling mobile homes. I was starting to kind of fit into the community, and I go to training, and they're like, all right, school's moving to Eldon tomorrow. And the guys are literally packing up the stuff in their house, and I'm going to have to wait because I have no place to live or a job. So for another 3 months after that, I'm driving from Springfield to Eldon, which is an hour and a half one way, after work to come train for 3.5 hours and turn around and drive back. After a while, it's just, I might as well move.
Was everyone like... But I mean, so I've been to Eldon, and it's a small, and those poor Noah guys would come down and do and they think that's what America is.
Oh,
like
man.
Eldon, right?
You know, for a wrestling school and what Harley was doing, it was a perfect situation.
Yeah.
Wasn't a lot for the guys to get in trouble. It was a great way for him to integrate into the community and to have the wrestling school and the wrestling be a part of the community. Eldon really welcomed us in. And for me, I come from a small town, so it wasn't a big drastic change. The only thing different from Eldon from my hometown is my hometown has a courthouse square. And that's it, man. But, you know, of course, like you'd say, some of the Japanese guys like Amori came down and spent 9 months, and you could tell that he was trying to be respectful, but he realizes he's in a country town, basically. And they're seeing Ring of Honor, and they would go to do shows. While they were here, they would go do shows for, like, Ring of Honor.
I know Go would, right? Shizaki.
Oh, yeah. And those, of course, when you get up northeast in that area,
New York City's fighting in New York City,
packed houses. I mean, the excitement of just the life outside. They would come back, you'd almost look at their faces like, I'm in Eldon again. Hi bud, let's go train.
Let's go to the one restaurant.
Right. But it was good though to keep everybody out of trouble. I think if we would have been in a more city-like environment, it would have opened up the avenues of guys getting in trouble.
So you kind of flourished out of the school. Well, I mean, Harley, it seemed like he had the Japanese connection.
Yes.
Like when you were doing, so you get in with Harley and like you start training, and I know that like where you're just training, like where were you like, this is eventually going to go up and up and up, and were you like, man, I could see myself doing this for the next 20 years with Harley and Eldon, and You know, did you have those kind of weird visions?
Well, yeah, the goal is always to get to WWE, and that's where you want to be. You want to be on that national stage, and I got lucky enough to wrestle other names, and Harley, we'd go up to do tryouts.
Can I stop you?
Please.
So that, and even when you got signed, it was like that era, and this is no offense to you, but you won't disagree with me, that era of like 2002, whenever you were there, like, it was a lot of stars and a lot of just body guys.
Yeah, cookie cut. No offense to those guys personally, but that's what they wanted. They were cookie cutters. Yeah. Everybody looked the same, unless you were. The only difference was one was big, one was small.
Right. But you still were like, "Yep, I'll fit right. I'll get right in there."
No. That's I always knew. Obviously, if you ever seen me, a picture of me, I'm not a bodybuilder. Yeah. But I was bred with the fact that the cream will rise to the top. The best wrestler will eventually overcome all of that. And to me, I figured, you know what? I may not be the prettiest guy in the world, but I can wrestle my ass off. And if I can get up there and show them that I can wrestle, that, in my opinion, is just as valuable as a guy who looks good who can't wrestle. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. But I had, Harley had brought us up there for what they call a tryout, which is basically Harley would walk us in. If they needed somebody, they would pick one of us. All we cared about was making the 250, eating some awesome catering. And, of course, you want to mark out a little bit. I remember one time when I went there for a tryout, I knew nothing was going to happen, but I wanted to see if I was as big as Triple H. Not as wide, but as tall. So, of course, my whole day, that's the only thing I cared about. I was like, where's he at? Where's he at? Where's he at? And sure enough, you've seen it too, where locals get brought in and they're just standing up against the wall. They don't want to be seen. They don't want to say anything wrong. They're just, hey, how you doing? I'm such and such. Nice to meet you. Hey, how I'm doing? Well, of course, Hunter's walking down the hallway, and I just stand straight up, and I'm like, all right, there's my moment. And he walks by, and we're eye to eye, and I go, yes. Because he looks like a monster on TV. He looks so huge. And I'm like, I'm as tall as him. If I can eventually just get nose to nose with him, I'll look as big.
Wouldn't be hard with him.
Oh,
hey, that was a nose joke.
But he's not listening. No.
I don't think he'd take offense to that either.
But it was obviously the place to go. But after a while, nobody, and you've been up there, you get that cold shoulder from everybody that's going on up there. You're more in the way at that moment. Yeah. So I was just, every time I'd go up there, I'd get my hopes would just get smaller and smaller. And I came to a realization, okay, maybe I'm not cut out for this. This isn't the place for me. And Japan, I got to thinking about it, and of course Harley had the connection, but I was like, I can go over there and work my ass off and still be a tub of goo. And as long as I work hard and have good matches, I can get over there. And what I mean by tub of goo, I didn't have a six pack. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Can I, like, was there ever like a point where you're like, all right, I'm gonna like become a six pack guy?
I'm gonna be absolutely honest.
Please.
There was moments where, like, I'd hit it about a couple weeks, and then I've never been a guy that's hit the gym. Now, does that mean I'm not strong? That's not the case at all. I've just never been a gym guy. Now, do we want to go out and cut down an acre of trees and move along? I'm your guy. I will go out there, and I know that sounds hickish or country or whatever, but that's just how I was raised. I work hard for something. Going in and picking up weights, to me, it just didn't compute. Mm-hmm. And I know there's some guys that are listening to this going, well, that fat ass Stan just didn't put in the work. It just didn't. It wasn't me.
So you were like, this is who I am. Take it or leave it. Yeah.
But the thing is, nobody could blow me up. That was one of the things, like, I felt confident on. Like, in the ring, you couldn't blow me up. You could hurt me, but I could keep going. I could still wrestle. Our goal at one time, me and Matt Murphy, one of our Harley students, was try to have the hour-long match. We could only get to 45 minutes, and that was in a tag match. Because we just you never get to that point where once you start feeling the crowd dying down, you're like, it's not worth it. Let's just go home. They're happy. Let's do it now. And but that was our goal. We wanted to have long wrestling matches and keep them entertained. And that comes down to Harley and that influence. We want to do what he did, and then we want to do it better. It's hard to beat Harley Race. Well, we certainly tried.
Was he crazy?
He wasn't crazy. He was tough. You know, there was no nonsense answers. Him and Arn Anderson, excuse me, are the only two guys that could make me feel like an idiot with the most simple answers. Like, for example,
I hate that feeling, by the way.
When they tell you the answer, you're like, that makes complete sense. I'm stupid.
Yeah.
When I went to WWE, I was a babyface 99% of my career. So, of course, when I get my job with WWE, they go, we want you as a heel. Well, I'm now freaking out. Number one company in the world, and they're asking me to do something that I don't know how to do and I'm not very comfortable with. So I call Harley up thinking I'm going to get this grando answer, this like come to Jesus knowledge answer. And I explained to him, I go, Harley, they want me to be a heel. I'm not comfortable. I don't know what to do. And there's this long pause, and he goes, Trevor, when you're a baby face, do you know what you want the heel to do to you? Yes, sir. Then just do that. And I was like, oh, okay. Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah. Oh, all right. Yeah, I'll just do that. And I hung up the phone, and I really don't know what to do with that answer, but it made me think and got my brain rolling. And I said, okay, all right, this is what I would do as a heel if I was a babyface. And then I had to think about my character. They put me in a tag team, and I'm standing next to this guy who's 6'7", 285 pounds, pretty jacked. And I'm like, what? How do I even compare to that? And I was like, well, if I can't be as pretty as him, I'm going to be the ugliest, meanest, rough. I'm going to be the complete opposite of him.
How long were you there before you got thrown in the tag? Because to be fair, I think that's all I remember.
That's all. I got out of the dojo. I just gotten out of the 6 months of the dojo in Noah and home for a couple weeks, and Harley goes, Trevor, I got you a tryout with WWE. Okay, at least I get to eat good catering.
Yeah.
I go there, I go to roll in the ring, I start stretching, and I see Chris Benoit doing his 500 squats before every show. I'm a mark for Chris Benoit. So I start doing some of my Japanese neck bridge, or just the neck bridges and some of the exercises I learned in Japan, which caught his attention. And I was hoping to get the rub for Japan because I knew how over he was over there. I was hoping maybe, hey, listen, it's Harley's guy. But what it ended up doing was it brought him over. He started asking me, who trained you? Harley Race. Have you been in Japan recently? And it was just time for me to lay out my resume. Well, yes, sir. I've been there 6 months. And he goes, do you have a match tonight? And I said, no. He said, I'll be right back. Left for 10 minutes, and he came back and he goes, all right, kid, you got a match tonight. They're going to be watching you. And I went from not giving a shit, not caring, just wanting to collect my $250 in catering to now I've got the attention of the people that I wanted when I was working my ass off.
So a couple times when I went there, I was that way, and I was almost like, I don't even want a match because I don't think I'm ready. Did that...
It wasn't that I didn't think I was ready.
Were you like, no, wait, let me come back in 4 weeks?
No, it wasn't. I wasn't scared that I wasn't ready. I just wanted to impress. I didn't know what they wanted. I didn't know what they were looking for. So the thing I focused on, I worked Rob Conway on a match for Heat. I just listened to him. I just followed. I was there for everything. I was hoping at the very least he would give me a good recommendation. Hey, this guy can work. He followed me. We can send him to OVW. That's all I was hoping for is OVW. They brought me back for SmackDown the next night, and I got to work Rene Dupree. And Johnny said, Renee, I want you to go 50-50 with Trevor. So on SmackDown, I got to show some offense. And
you wrestled on SmackDown?
Yes.
It wasn't even a dark match?
It wasn't even a dark match.
So you did a dark match Monday, and then you were on SmackDown,
I was on
50-50
as a nobody.
Okay.
And
As Trevor Murdoch that day?
yes, because what's funny about that is I was doing Trevor Rhodes and Ricky Steamboat was there at the time, and Dusty had a ton of heat with Vince.
Hey.
And Ricky comes up and goes, "Hey, maybe you ought to be Murdoch. Rhodes ain't working out for anybody right now." And I was like, "I don't care. You can put me in a pink tutu. You give me a job, I'll do it."
It's funny you say that. It was probably the same night where I was a pink tutu on ECW.
Do what you got to do to get attention, brother.
Right.
Hey, we've all done some crazy things. And I went out there and I had a good match with Rene Dupree, and Johnny Ace come in the back and said, "I need to talk to you." He brought me in the office, offered me a developmental deal, said that he said, "Yeah, I want your address and phone number. I'll send you a contract, have your lawyer look at it, sign it, send it back." Well, I'm an independent guy that can barely make rent, let alone have a lawyer. But
You know
of
that. I
course-
was going to say, you know that lawyer that you have?
yeah. So I was like, of course I'll have him look at it. And I'm not joking. I didn't pull the contract out far enough to even effing read it. I pulled it out far enough where we see little sign tabs, you know. I signed it, put it back in the box, and sealed it up and sent it off because I didn't want Johnny Ace to think he had a brain fart on hiring me.
Yep. That's fun.
There you go. Let's get that in there so maybe I can at least get the 90-day early out, get a paycheck out of this. And I was supposed to be down in OVW in 4 weeks. I got a call 2 weeks later as I was packing my stuff up. They said they wanted to bring me in and tag me with Lance Cade, see how we looked as a tag team, and then that next week they were going to tag him with Kevin Thorne to see how they looked as a tag team. We went out there and
So they wanted Lance as a tag wrestler.
Yes. And the idea was originally Kevin Thorne's and Lance's, the trucker and cowboy. Kevin Thorne, though, had gotten a bunch of heat at the time, ended up getting into an argument with a guy, grabbing him by his ears and headbutting him till he flattened out his nose, which wasn't good for, obviously, WWE's.
It was great for you, though.
Oh, it was great. Perfect. Once again, somebody wasn't there for a spot.
Right? Yeah.
And we had 2 matches. We did 2 dark matches. And Johnny Ace met us in the Gorilla and said, "We're not even going to bring in Kevin. I need to know right now. You've worked with Kevin in OVW. Who would you rather tag with, Lance or Trevor? Or Trevor or Kevin?" And I got to give Lance all the credit. He spoke up and said, "I think I got better chemistry with Trevor." And Johnny says, "All right, you guys are on the road next week."
Amazing.
And walks away. And within the last 3 weeks, I went from not caring, not expecting to get a job, to now I'm in a tag team, to now I'm on the road. And now they're shooting my vignettes.
Yeah, I've never heard this. Like I've just heard the story. I just remember you not going to developmental and kind of going on the road real quick.
Yes.
Yeah.
I say I was blessed that I didn't get to go through our developmental because I got to go to the main roster. I got to be pushed into a certain spotlight. But I look back on it now, I really wish I would have went to developmental.
Really?
So I could find out the system on how things work with WWE. I went in completely blind and completely reliant on Lance. And you know as well as I do with that company, you need to have your P's and Q's in order and be able to take care of yourself. And Lance never buried me or anything of that nature, but for the fact that I had to rely on him very early on, I think kind of pulled some playing cards out of my hand and made me look inexperienced. Whereas if I would have had that time to go down to OVW and see how the process works, see who the right people is to talk to get what I need done, I think I might have had a better chance.
See, I'm like you in the way. I'm thinking the same way that you pulled out that thing and you wrote
Get it while I can.
and you wrote that contract and send it back. So imagine you got sent to OVW and then they were like, nah.
And you're absolutely right.
So
No,
like in my head, it's like, yeah, you did the right thing.
I wasn't asking to go back.
Sure.
You know, hindsight's 20/20. Now looking at it, at the very least, I never even stepped foot into OVW or any of their. Like, I couldn't tell you what any of their buildings look like outside. I should have at least made an effort to go down and see what it was like, to see what they were doing. But on my off time, Colt, I was going back to Harley's school, working with his guys. On my days, like I'd have 2 days off, I would go home, I would kiss my wife, spend about an hour with her, and then I was going up to the school.
I remember that.
I brought up, when I was tag champ, I brought the belts up to the guys because I wanted them to see that it was an attainable goal. And to be humble if they did attain that goal.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Of course.
And I wanted it to motivate the guys guys, I was in the exact same spot you were. You can do this.
So now, I don't know, like, I guess not fast forward, but you you're back to training again, which
Yes.
seems to be something you really enjoy and have a passion for.
I do. I was lucky enough when I was with Harley, I got to train a lot of his guys. And you know as well as I do, when you're working with somebody, it's really cool to watch them get it. When you can visibly look at them and they go, and you see the light go off in their head, and then you watch that guy apply that into the ring, and it starts progressing into something amazing. To me, that's exciting. To me, that's fun. And you've been around long enough, and you've seen that there's not a lot of real credible trainers out there teaching guys the right way. And I think that's something that's missing in this business. And with me being lucky enough, I have the opportunity now that I can give that to other guys and share that knowledge of what I got to do. And maybe hopefully somebody else can go, get that dream.
Yeah, I would say you have to come from somewhere. So these guys aren't just showing up to wrestling, especially now. I mean, they're all coming through the indies, and finally that system has realized, at least the WWE system, that those are the guys that wanted it, started at a little place, with maybe somebody who could really help them. And this area, I don't know this area. Usually I have my guys who I would say, the Truth Martinis, the Pat Bucks,
right.
the Hawkins, just the different schools all over. And down here in Kansas City, I wouldn't even know if I had someone to send somewhere to. So
well, I'm here, brother.
That's what I'm saying.
If you look back at the business, that's when the business was the most successful, is when they had the territories and guys would go other places. Now, and thankfully, WWE's starting to smarten up. Those are the guys we need to start bringing in, those seasoned guys that we can tweak them a little bit to what WWE wants and be successful. If you remember when you were coming in, the indie guys were
poo-pooed on.
Oh yeah, we were lower than low. If you didn't come out of their developmental system, you just didn't exist.
And the developmental guys thought you didn't even know what you were doing.
Because you were wrestling right, and they were wrestling the way they were taught in developmental. And you know as well as I do, you can see it in guys who grew up with the wrestling, loved it, and the guys that either watch Stone Cold Steve Austin flip a couple fingers. Right. That's what I want to do.
Yeah.
So and those are the guys that I get a chuckle out of, and I love having come in for a tryout because they think, I can do that. I can flip people off. I'll come in here and I'll blow them up and let them know this is what we do every day.
Right.
Well, then they start rethinking what kind of decisions they've made. But on the flip side of it, that guy that's loved this business and want to know how to get into it, I've watched that same guy come in here and be crawling out on a tryout, but be walking right back in for the next day going, that sucked, that was horrible, but I'm ready to come do it again. And those are the guys that get me fired up. That's all right, man, that's... You got to, as well as I do, you got to have a set of balls in this business.
Yeah, well, that's what I was going to say, man. And you're notoriously... and your reputation is a tough dude. And
I know on my work style is a little bit rougher than what is out there. That goes back to Harley and believability and what works for me. I've found what works for me, what fits Trevor Murdoch's character, what I'm comfortable with. And
there's some dudes that probably didn't appreciate it.
No, there wasn't. But those same guys, after a while, would watch me work and realize why I was doing what I was doing, would come up to me and go, okay, I get it now. My first 6 months in WWE, I had a lot of heat with guys, and I'll just two particular, as Charlie Haas and Shelton Benjamin. And it wasn't anything personal. It was those guys were down in developmental working their asses off trying to get an opportunity. And then they seen Pudgy Trevor come in 4 weeks after he gets a job as now tag team champion. They wanted to run me through the paces, I'm sure in the beginning to embarrass me, had a little heat with me. But the thing is anything they would give me, I would give it back to them, and they couldn't blow me up. That's the one thing that I think I was able to gain respect from all those guys was, this guy can still go. And, in Japan, those guys don't fool around. You got to step up or go home. And it was very easy for me to carry that over because I wasn't out of the dojo, but 8 weeks. It was very easy for me to carry that same thought process.
Did a little bit of you want to like? So did you only have that 6 week run in Noah then?
What do you mean? No, I was 6 months in the dojo.
6 months in the dojo. But you only wrestled then. You wrestled there for 6 months also, yeah.
Yes, yeah. I was in the dojo. While I was in the dojo, I was still wrestling tours.
But did you like when WWF was a little bit of you like, man, I just put 6 months in, like I wanted.
I found it extremely ironic that it took me leaving the country, going through hell for 6 months, 500 squats a day, 300 push-ups a day, for them to finally go, oh, this guy can work.
Did a little bit of you want to like not be in WWE though, and like be like?
Actually, it all caught me. Like I was so surprised by I was just like, I'm running with it.
Take whatever.
I'm just waiting for the train to stop.
Right.
Because I always knew I maybe not knew, but I think I was always kept it in my head. You don't see a lot of long-term WWE guys. There's only a handful, bro. Undertakers, Ortons, Cena's, whatever. So I knew that the day I got my job, I was on a timeline. Like, all right, now I'm going to eventually get fired. Let's just see how long I can keep this stretch going. And I was almost, I was able to keep it going for almost 4 years, and you look back and I should have done this differently. Maybe they'd have kept me. I could have done that differently and they'd have kept me. But if it would have changed, I wouldn't be where I'm at today. I wouldn't have the school. I wouldn't,
You like where you're at today?
I am. I'm happy.
You're very happy.
I'm very happy. I pick and choose where I wrestle. I get to work with guys that are hungry and love the business, which as well as I do is hard to find. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I'm extremely happy. There's no bitterness. There's you can look back at any situation. Well, I could have done this. I could have done that. But it might have changed where I'm at today, man. There's a reason for everything. There was a reason why I got my job at WWE when I didn't expect it. There was a reason why I lost my job when I didn't expect it. If I sit back here and go, well, I should have had this and I should have had that, that's when you become bitter. That's when you become...
It fucks with your mind, too, don't it?
Horribly. And it did. It did for about 6 months after I got let go because you started, where do you go from there? Your whole career, you're working towards that, and you've been there, you've done something, and now you're like, where do you go? A lot of people don't understand. You feel truly lost because you love something, and everything else is second compared to that. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean?
Where else are you gonna fucking go? 18,000 people.
Lowest crowd, maybe 5,000 at a house show.
All right.
And then my next show after I got released was working for Ian Rotten, IWA Mid-South, outside in the parking lot of a bowling alley, and my locker room was the bathroom of the bowling alley. And I'm like,
it's a wake-up call, man.
It was a long drive home, bro, and I really questioned whether or not I was going to continue.
That'll do it. That'll make you question it.
And, I had a lot of soul-searching, and I'm like, well, you know what, all right, it's never going to be, unless I go back, it's never going to be that great. But it's still in front of people. I'm still wrestling. I can still entertain. I can still have a good time in the ring. And that's what eventually you get back to is, all right, this is supposed to be fun, man. It's supposed to be a good time. And that's when I've been able to create the most magic is when I'm having fun, man. And I look back at my time with WWE, I didn't have a lot of fun moments. Not that the people were bad, but the wrestling was. And when I say the wrestling was bad, it was because I was so constricted. You can't go out there and have a tag match in 6 minutes from curtain to curtain. It's just not feasible. And when you're coming from, I was taught how to tell stories in the ring. It was very difficult for me in the beginning to squeeze all of that story into 6 minutes and to try to make it good and for people to make sense.
And you're taught by the king of the long Iron Man match, right?
Hour long every
night. Of course. Trev, where can they get the information about the school? Where are you at on the internet?
Yes, sir. We have a web page. We are at kcprowrestlingtc.com. We are also on Facebook at KC Pro Wrestling. Also trevormurdoch.com. And you can also catch Trevor Murdoch on Facebook as well, too.
You're on Twitter?
Yeah, I am on Twitter. Man, I'm
on Twitter?
Twitter. I don't use it very often, but I am on Twitter.
Okay.
I'm on Real T Murdoch.
Great.
And I'm also on Instagram.
Oh, yeah.
At the Real Team Murdoch. I got a 17-year-old daughter at the house, and I was starting to work on promotion for the school here. And she goes, Dad, you ought to get on Instagram. You'll probably get more followers. I've heard of Instagram, honey, but you're going to have to show me.
Well, with a 17-year-old daughter, I bet you also have a Snapchat that you don't know about.
I do have a Snapchat I don't use and don't know. I couldn't even tell you what my handle is, man.
But if you could find it, maybe one day he'll figure it out.
You know, Facebook, man. That's
Sounds good. Sounds good. Hey, I appreciate it.
No, thank you. This is awesome. This was probably the most comfortable, fun interview I've had
We're just hanging out,
very long time.
Chatting.
Yes, sir.
And I just did a seminar at your school, and it was great. I'm
awesome.
here. I can vouch for it. It's a lovely school. It's top notch.
Thank you.
If I was down here, I'd be there.
I appreciate it, man. You were great today. A lot of those guys gained a lot of information that they needed to hear. Also, things that I've said in here. You reinstilled that into them. Today was a positive day all the way around, and I can't thank you enough.
I'm all about positivity.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks, bud.
All right, like I said, Trevor just had a kid, so he's taking a little bit of a break on the school, but the school is still open. Still a great ring and a great facility. I was there. A great place to get your start if you're in the Kansas City area, if you're in the Minnesota area, and if you're in that Minnesota area or the upper Midwest, hit up Davari, hit up Ken Anderson. The point is, get trained by an awesome trainer. Pat Buck's in New Jersey and New York. Truth Martini's in Michigan. I am too fucking busy to train. I don't think that's for me. Maybe when I'm like 60. But right now, I feel like I'm 60 with my body. But I'm not. I'm in my 30s, and I'm still ready to go. All right, before we get out of here, let's get into some plugs and
Upcoming events.
All right, the best way that you can support ColtMerch.com, DigitalColt.com, Twitter and Instagram at Colt Cabana, Facebook /AOW Podcast, also /Colt Cabana. Past archives of the show are available on Howl.fm ad-free. Use the code COLT. Get yourself a free month. ColtWrestling@gmail.com is my very public email. I got a YouTube channel. Check it out. Also, ColtCabana.com. You can find my P.O. Box there. You can send me something fun for snail mail. Upcoming September 30th, October 1st, 14th, 15th, 21st, 22nd, 29th, November 3rd and 4th, Boston, Chicago, Detroit, Tampa, Fort Lauderdale, Baltimore, Arlington, and San Antonio. Those are all for ROHWrestling.com. Thursday, October 6th, Clarksville, Indiana, Facebook /IWA Mid-South Wrestling. Friday, October 7th, Marionette Park, Illinois, AAWrestling.com. Saturday, October 8th, Kansas City, Kansas. This is the show, MetroWrestling.com. Sunday, October 16th, Austin, Texas, WrestleCircus.com. Sunday, October 30th, Gainesville, Florida. I'm headed to the Fest, FL.com. All right, that is the show for this week. Thank you very much for you, the listener, the person who supports and listens every week to every episode, because they're all fun and you like hearing us bullshit for a little bit. I appreciate it. Thanks to Trevor Murdoch. Thanks to Cable Guy Jeff and Sue Stone, Kid Russell, Matt Jenkins with music, Dave Miller with tech. Let's thank some sponsors, highspots.com. They have an amazing VOD service that you should be checking out. Also, $5 wrestling titles, AMA knee pad, gear, mask. They have a wrestling ring. They have anything wrestling related you need. They have it. OneHourTees.com. They help run ProWrestlingTees.com. That's the place you can support your favorite independent wrestler by buying a t-shirt, and everyone wins. SweetDaughter.com/Colt. The earbuds that I use get over 30% for free shipping just because you listen to this show. Come see me in the Kansas City area. Guys, I don't know when this fucking movie is going to get done. Hopefully soon. I'm praying. I don't know what I'm praying to, but I'm praying. Soon enough, I think. It'll get done. It's so funny. All right. I got to go stretch. Ugh. Wish I was friends with Rob Van Dam. He could just teach me how to stretch. He used to stretch for like an hour before matches, maybe longer. Maybe I should do that. It sounds like so much work, though. I'd rather not. I feel I'm happier because I don't. I don't know if that's a long-term decision, though. All right, guys, I'm out of here. This has been The Art of Wrestling. For Colt Cabana, I'm Colt Cabana. Thanks.